This is Ocean to Ocean. I am Art Pinsof. Today I'm talking to Neil Sanis, host of Nothing Cafe and Nonduality coach. Welcome, Neil.
Hi, Art.
I wanted to do an up close introduction. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Very good.
Good.
Yeah. It's been a rainy day in Leamington. So it's been a day for being indoors has won it today.
Good. Perfect day to do a podcast interview.
Absolutely.
So I just recently met you through your group that you started, which I'm a big fan of, called Nothing Cafe.
Yeah, it's great to have you join us on Nothing Cafe. It's been a very exciting project. It's very new. It feels this week, we're just about to take a break for a week. So it's a sort of defining moment. We've been running for about 10 weeks now. So I think coming back next week, it will feel the following week, it will feel a bit established.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Well, yeah, this interview will probably come out after that point. So whenever people hear this, it'll probably be going.
Be back, yeah, with a vengeance.
Yes. So, yeah, so for those who don't know about it, could you describe the group, what it is?
Yes, so the group is essentially a place where people can have conversations and hear each other and meet like-minded people who are into this kind of radical message of nothing being everything, and who maybe have been a bit isolated, either by being in far-flung places in the globe or from the pandemic. And it's really a meeting point and a kind of fusion of different ideas of anything and everything.
Yep.
We have, I would say one of the things is that when we get together in this way, it tends to be very quickly that kind of personal barriers come down, and there is a kind of sharing atmosphere which enables this beautiful kind of intimacy, really. So the tagline for Nothing Cafe is creating intimacy through conversation, because it's through communication that we share and we talk, but the real win, I guess, is this kind of feeling of sharing, of togetherness, and it's quite beautiful to see.
Yeah, that I agree with all of that. From my experience, it does create intimacy, and one of the key components of it that I think allows for this and prevents anyone from kind of taking over as an authority is how it mostly involves going into smaller breakout groups on Zoom.
Yeah, so it sort of has grown out of, and the reason it's called a cafe is out of non-duality meetings that used to take place, and the after bit where people would go and hang out in cafes and bars and kind of meet each other and socialize. And there was always this great kind of hubbub that arose around meetings, that happened in the real, which we kind of lost when things went online. So I was trying to think, how do you recreate that? Because what I saw at the beginning when Zoom really kind of took off was, like 100 people all getting together and having, a great collective, but no one could really hear each other. So I was trying to think, well, how do you do that? And Zoom introduced the breakout rooms, and that provides a way for people to split off into having small discussions. So we're trying to get groups of 4, where the quieter ones can can be heard as much as, you know, people who are more kind of extroverted and outward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the format is that people show up, and when I've been going, it's usually 50, 60 people about, and then they all meet in one big waiting room area where everyone kind of says hello, and then you or someone else will divide what seems like randomly everyone into smaller groups of 3 to 5 people for only 30 minutes. And then at the end of that 30 minutes, they come back to the waiting room, and then this cycle repeats 3 or 4 times. You get to actually have potentially up to 3 or 4 experiences of intimate, unique conversations with people around the world who share this interest in non-duality.
Yes, it's always hard breaking the group up. I have to kind of watch the clock, because sometimes I'm so engrossed in the conversation myself, because, you know, as a participant, I would quite happily be in that breakout room with that group of people that has spawned out of nothing, to be together in that moment, sharing a conversation that didn't exist before, you know, for the next 2-3 hours. So I then kind of, you know, the half an hour comes quickly, and I then have to kind of let everyone know, right, it's time to change around. And then we kind of come back again to this kind of central area in Zoom. And then you're absolutely right. It is a randomly generated hit. Some people will say, well, I've been going around and this person has been with me for the 2 or 3 things. And I say, well, you're just beating the random thing, that you're so strong that you are just destined to be together for the evening. But yeah, it is kind of it's kind of weird and wonderful, kind of how it kind of happens.
Yeah. So random selection, do you use an app for that, or Google to do random?
It is just literally a button on Zoom, and due to the fact that there's always like an uneven amount of people in the Zoom, I then kind of head to the room that's got the fewest people in it to kind of make up a 4 or whatever. So my slot is kind of written as well, and then I mean, eventually it'll be good to get some like music linked in, so we can have like a really cool jingle or something going while this kind of randomizer thing is going. But at the moment, that is allocated to my friend Darren, who just makes some kind of noise or expressions to kind of indicate that this random thing is going on.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love Darren. I've known him for a bit. Yeah, and random is funny. It's like you were saying, random, you can wind up with the same person. Like I've wound up with some of the same people over and over, but it's random. It's interesting. Yeah. Just how, I mean, I like that idea just in general about life, you know, the apparent randomness of it. Words like random and synchronicity, they're just interesting and funny. I mean, and since I know a bit about computer code and math, like there is no actual random math function that I know of. You know, there's just what they call random number generator functions. They actually do have a sequence that's set. They're not actually random. They just have a really, really, really long sequence before they would repeat.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit a ball, like if you're playing billiards or pool or snooker, and you hit a ball, then there is you can calculate scientifically using the trajectory of the ball and the momentum and the force that you're hitting the ball. You could calculate exactly where the balls are going. But when you get into the quantum realm of things, what was discovered, much to Einstein's dismay, was that there is actually a truly random event that that can't be predetermined. Hence his famous expression, "God does not play dice."
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, no, I mean, that's interesting because I think some leading quantum physicists are now starting to agree with Einstein's original hypothesis that he never proved himself, that there might actually be some order to all of it. Even the quantum fluctuations, it's just a matter of the instruments are not fine enough precise. We can't measure certain things yet, or maybe ever. But I looked up this word random. Something I like to do sometimes about curious words like random, like, is look up the etymology, and this word comes from the meaning of to basically running or rushing with great force in kind of like a disorderly way, like carelessly, just sort of like this rushing forward. And I think that's kind of perfect because everything just kind of is this rushing forward and not knowing where it's going. And theoretically, if you had all the variables of the universe, you could always calculate what comes next, but nobody can do that really. So we just, yeah, this life is just one apparent thing after another that all seems pretty spontaneous and surprising. And and then you have, like I said before, ideas like Carl Jung's synchronicity, that, and I guess that's where meaning comes in. We observe what's happening and then we attach meaning to it or speculate on meaning. What does that bring to mind for you?
Well, firstly, I would say that in non-duality, there's two different schools of thought on the what is going to happen next, and one of them is kind of uses pointers in order to dislodge the idea of free will. So determinism, predeterminism is a tool that I've heard used in Advaitin circles to help highlight the extent to which there is no free will. Because if everything is predetermined and predestined, and you're just in a kind of groove that is going in a certain direction, even if you can't predict it, then you're kind of stuck there with this idea, this overlaid thought, thinking that you are doing it when actually you're not in control at all. However, the school of thought which I subscribe to and love and adore is one of freedom, and that actually it's not that you don't have free will, it's that there's no one there that could have free will. So actually there is a complete freedom for, and I think that deep down, or not so deep down, there is a feeling of that anything and everything that possibly could happen is, will, or was happening apparently for no one. So I really embrace and adore the freedom kind of message, if you like. It really sort of fits in with a kind of sense of life being quite chaotic, and that where there is order, it is only an appearance of order, or chaos appearing in the form of order.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it to that place, the last thing you said, because one thing that brought to mind was what some people describe as, non-duality is all inclusive, which would have to include exclusivity. And you could also say it's so exclusive, meaning not this, in the traditional Advaita way of saying, yeah, I think the Sanskrit word is neti, not this,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a lot of what you get in satsangs or modern non-duality meetings with like a Tony or Jim or Tim, because there's a lot of like people are saying, oh, is it this? And basically they'll say no. And that's 99% of what I think goes on throughout history in a lot of these meetings. More, I mean, and then there's more to it than that, I'm sure. I mean, in the human expression, but when the human expression is pointed out, it's like, no, it's not that. You know, I feel like that's what's meant by when UG said that if this happens for you, it will show up in a way that's never been seen before or expressed before. And he said it's as UG Krishnamurti, for those who aren't familiar. And he said that, you know, it's like a flower, different flowers. Like, why would a rose try to be a daffodil? You know, but a rose might not think a daffodil. I mean, it's kind of a silly analogy to say flowers would think, you know, have opinions about other flowers, but he made the point that even though everyone is unique and a different flower in a sense, that doesn't mean they're going to be happy about what other flowers are expressing necessarily. And again, that's the personality level, and that's it's so all-inclusive that it includes exclusivity. And it's so exclusive that I guess it excludes inclusivity. I mean, because you can only describe non-duality in paradox. You know, the other perspective on next, because yeah, you were pointing out how I said what happens next, and you're saying there's two perspectives on that. One that, you know, embraces a sense of free will, and one that says there isn't one.
Well, I wouldn't say it's free will. But going back to what you said, I mean, for me, it's freedom. I mean, I think it's freedom. I like, you know, I may feel that I have agency, but it's not me that is having that agency. But nevertheless, I still think that that sense of agency has some link into the fact that there is this freedom. It's not my freedom. It's not my will that is, you know, making these things happen. But then there is no one driving Neil. Neil is just, like you say, that's where the inclusivity comes in.
Yeah.
Because one of the wonderful things about the message is that the me is included. The me doesn't die. People looking on this constant wheel of seeking for the end of me. And it's one of the big misnomers or you know, that maintains a kind of suffering, is this pursuit of the death of me. What dies is I suppose the objectification of it, the idea that it is real, that it is, you know, that there is someone being me in a way, that the me is a story, and it's a beautiful story. And that's where in your introduction, you introduced me as a non-dual coach. I am sort of moving from my background is in social work, so I'm taking that kind of professional expertise and bringing it across into this area of supporting people that have had awakenings. But it's not at all about, you know, coaching people with the non-dual issue. It's about what to do with life and how to reintegrate back into life after awakening, and what like you say about meaning. Where does meaning come in as a useful term even after a complete loss of meaning? What do you do with that? And all of those things that are kind of thrown up. And my experience of running non-duality meetings in London through Seeking Nothing was that a lot of the questions that I observed and a lot of the issues that were coming up were not to do with non-duality, really. They were to do with the stuff of life. And I think, if I may say, maybe this is a bit radical against what is already radical, but that a lot of, you know, this looking for responses from non-duality, what is being sought isn't anything to do with seeking or spiritual seeking. It's just, how do you do life? And life it's difficult. I mean, maybe it's a breeze for some, but for some people it is a challenge, and that challenge doesn't disappear with this, enlightenment that doesn't exist anyway. When seeking drops away, because seeking was it came from an agitation, a discomfort with what is. Seeking is, in a way, language is terrible for doing this stuff, but seeking is to get away from, not towards life. It's because the me is spawned to try and find an alternative to what there is. So when that collapses and there is what is, there's then that, you're then left with the life that you were trying to run away with in the first place through all this non-duality pursuit, if you like. So I think that there's I think there's a lot in that, really. I think there's another thing is what I call the misattribution of me, that the people are ascribing to me, to the me. I hate the term the me, by the way, because I hear that in talks, and I just cringe, because it even more objectifies what isn't the case in the first place.
Right.
But people misattribute to the me life. They say, well, I can't have stopped seeking yet because this is still happening. I'm still doing this. There's still a me here. And I think a lot of that, when it is about unpacking what people's kind of definitions are of things that they think are to do with the me, when actually it's just life doing what it's doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The thing that really resonated for me, for lack of a better word, but not the me. God, no. Never. No, but no, I get what you're saying with that, because I do find it kind of misleading, a little annoying personally, when, well, I hear it more from seekers than speakers, really, that when there's talk about the me falling away, but I guess, or they're expecting, like, when did the me fall away? When will it fall away? And there's no me to fall away. There's just, like you said earlier, there's this, I forget how you put it, but it's something else. It's not a me falling away. It's kind of a story around it, around there being a me falling away, dissolving or something. But
yeah, and I think that one of the things that feeds that,
yeah,
I could give a story that, my story is just bonkers.
Yeah.
But then people listening to a speaker, fortunately, I'm not a speaker. I don't have to play. I don't have to toe the line. I can be kind of cheeky and mischievous. But speakers give a story, and another thing I see a lot is that the seekers are waiting for the shift to happen. The big revelation is that there is no shift. The awakening is the shift, and for the majority of seekers, really, that's already happened. They've already had that break in the clouds, where where the clouds are parted and they've seen through that solidity of their solid, the idea that they are a solid, separate person. And then they're in this kind of seeking to try and re-find that. But you don't everyone's experience is different, but so I don't know this, but potentially there's people who are seeking for something to happen again, which has already happened. Not that anything happens anyway, but do you see what I mean? That shift won't come for some people, because there isn't a shift in that sense. There isn't an event to happen to anyone. And And that, I think, is one of the things I see a lot. People, they want some earth-shattering event that is going to end them, that they're then going to have this kind of recognize what they hear from a speaker telling their story.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess the so-called speaker that really the last one to really resonate for me as a seeker last year was Paul Hederman. And the things that he emphasized, I just didn't hear from anywhere else. And there were things that I think I needed to hear to sort of see what you're saying now. And like he would say that like this sense of self, or whatever you want to call it, that it has like the most hubris, of anything in the universe. It's the only thing that will take credit for its own absence. And so when I hear about, so
I really like
that. yeah, I think he is just some more.
It's the false claimant, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think the way he puts it is that the self has the biggest balls in the universe, and he's a little more cheeky with how he puts things. Just look at his website name, which I won't even mention. But I love him. Yeah, I love Paul. Yeah, not a fan of the website name personally, but I love him. But yeah, I guess yeah,
I'm doing quite well with language so far.
Yeah,
I'm managing to curb my language and be quite respectful and responsible with my choice of words, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, yeah, sure. Yeah, no, you're great with language. But it's, yeah, and so is Paul. Paul's great with language. No, people use different kinds of language, and different characters have different kind of, whatever floats the boat. And actually, Paul has said that part of the reason why he named his website that is because he doesn't want to be that famous. He wants to make sure enough people are turned away. But basically, the story, like something happened, wow, and now I'm the person that something happened to. That means no one is here anymore, and there's no one here to claim it, except on a subtle level, something is claiming that and repeating it over and over and over. And it's like, yes, ever since the shift, no one is here, and it has now been seen that no one has ever been here, and no one knows except for that individual or non-individual whether that is and even they don't know. That's the amazing thing. And and it's often said that people just stop caring. So it's like, oh, I don't even care if there's narcissism here, or if this is enlightenment, or if this is whatever, however they're putting it, that this is the realizing that there's only nothing happening to no one, apparently, as this, blah, 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 blah. Like,
I think that's a really, really good point. And it's one of the things that I had in mind to say that is a kind of central thesis of mine, which I'm sort of developing and ruminating on at the moment, is that there is no underpinning theory of non-duality which is right. And I don't just mean language. I'm not just talking about words. I believe that words have meaning. And by the way, I never use the word apparent. So whoever's listening, you have to just insert and pepper anything I say with the word apparent at your own, to liberal use. But I don't believe, I believe that words have meaning. I think that Tony is wonderful in how he has delivered a message which I think is infused with meaning. I think it's a beautiful message, and I think his words and his choice of words is accurately chosen to portray something which I immediately recognize in the words. I mean, there is an energetic resonance, to use your word from before, but I think the words matter. I don't like this, oh, words, it's just words. No, words are how we are communicating as humans, and those words, they matter. But anyway, but I think that my thesis is that there is no underpinning theory of non-duality that works or is right. And that is how it's possible for the Nothing Cafe to work and be there. It's a place where people with very different ideas can coexist, because what is bringing people together is not on an intellectual level at all. It's not a rational thing. Like you say, you can't know it. It's unknowable. It's a mystery. It's wondrous. It's a miracle. And also, I quite like to add on to this central thesis of mine that even that isn't right either. That even my thesis that there is no underpinning, that isn't at the center either. You know, the Nothing Cafe really has nothing. I kind of liken myself to the barman. You know, I'm like the guy serving the drinks. I'm not even serving drinks because it's online. So people turn up. I mean, I probably should be a bit more polished with my introduction and come up with something quite funky to kind of galvanize people before I set people off with this randomizer. But what then happens is people are in a room that's unmoderated, and because of that, we have some rules around the cafe to make it a good experience for everyone. But that conversation doesn't have anyone in the middle proclaiming anything. It's really spawned out of nothing in that small amount of time, half an hour, for something that to allow something that may be quite beautiful to transpire.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really can't say, I mean, I've only been to it maybe 3 or 4 times, but I can't speak more highly of it. I mean, there's something about that 30-minute time limit too, that it reminds me of like some of my favorite albums of music, you know, by like artists like the Beatles or the Doors or Weezer, or it's like there's so many albums that just like they leave you wanting more. So the 30 minutes, yeah, it almost always ends where we're in the middle of something really exciting, but it's been enough, and then it's fun going on to the next thing, and it prevents anyone from, I mean, even if there is a very strong personality with a very adamant about their way of putting things in one group, well, you sit through it for 30 minutes and then you go on to the next room. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the worst case scenario, which and which is kind of the perfect amount even to take that kind of thing in. So, because then you can consider it and think, oh, was that person, do I resonate with that or not? And what I've also, it's always revealing new things to me very quickly going to that meeting, because it's such a rapid succession of different, not just perspectives, but voiced experiences. And that's what is occurring to me now, that what I find most enjoyable about it isn't what people's opinions are, but I mean, that's great, and talking about ideas is fun, I guess, but what's even more exciting to me is when I'm in a room with someone from a whole other part of the world, whole different background and life and different age, like everything is so utterly different. And then they tell me about their life experience the last 3 to 5 years or 20 years. And it's like this incredible story. It's just very interesting and enjoyable. And it does usually revolve around this non-duality story of the character, seeking falling away, or perhaps some of the, bumps along the road of that, apparent process. And I guess with that in mind, if you're open to just a slight detour, I was wondering if you'd like to share anything about your story that led you to non-duality, or start, and I didn't even know that you said you had a meeting you were hosting before this Nothing Cafe. Is that accurate?
I had a detour as well, but I'll respond to your detour first, because I was going to ask you about music, because you mentioned the link with albums, and
Yeah.
so I'm interested to hear about your kind of experience as well.
Okay. Yeah, we could go back to that too, for sure. Yeah.
So Seeking Nothing was given to me, actually. It kind of landed on a plate. It was one of these happy coincidences of synchronicity, where this friend of mine called Rob Jamil, he set up Seeking Nothing.
What's his name?
Rob Jamil. And he was running these talks in London, hosting the speakers when they came to London, and running talks. And he wanted to let go of that, and I wanted to take on a project. So we just kind of, this moment arose at the same time where there was a need on both sides. And he's a very generous guy, beautiful guy. So he gave me Seeking Nothing. So it landed on my lap. So I ran talks in London, hosting non-duality speakers for a couple of years. And I'd already been in the Tony Parsons scene for about 13, 14 years. So I had my own kind of seeking experience of going to talks and asking questions. And I asked my share of questions, I didn't hold back. So I ran this for a couple of years, and then the pandemic came, and it sort of went, it kind of dropped away because we couldn't host meetings. And so I had the experience of being in and around that, talking to the speakers who I was hosting on a kind of private level, as well as, seeing their kind of public persona. And also engaging with the community of, like a seeking community that really wanted to get this message. And I saw some of the kind of things that arose within that, and that's, it's reflecting on that over the pandemic, and also with things going online, that has kind of prompted me to kind of think about, well, what can I offer? How can I take things forwards? And where are people at now, with a lot of kind of speakers emerging? Although on a one-to-one level, I feel, that I've got skills in supporting people with those kind of residual, I call it residual seeking. But I think that my kind of strength lies in then how to help people for which seeking has largely fallen away, deal with those residual seeking questions, and then look for and make the shift towards having a personal meaning in the absence of an actual meaning, that can then give them the basis to kind of be then driving forwards in their life and making, their life story, when there ultimately isn't anyone doing, of course, any of that. So that's sort of my mission, if you like, in my, where I see my kind of life work kind of heading.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, we'll I guess we'll link to your website for that as well, and people can find you on Facebook who feel like they might benefit from that service that you're offering, of one-on-one, pre and post awakening perhaps, but still having things on the relative level to sort out perhaps. Yeah. And for you, the falling away of seeking, the ending of seeking spiritually, or for any of this kind of non-dual stuff, was there a particular day, year, moment, or was it more gradual?
I think there needs to be one swear word in every one. There has to be at least one moment of swearing, and I think it's impossible to say anything other than my story is a little bit fucked up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is that I lived my whole adult life without a sense of separation, without being anyone, and so no one was seeking. So the seeking was still continuing, even though it was recognized in my teens actually that there was no one. So there was a definite moment that I was meditating in my teens, and again I shudder to think what people listening to that will do with that and attribute like a cause and have this whole issue of cause and effect. And
Yeah.
I know that it's it's a question, and this whole thing about process as well, that is debated, but anyway, that was the context in which the me here, I'm using it now, fell away. And
Wow.
and what happened was, and I think I can pinpoint the album that I was listening to as well. It was an album called Illuminations by Santana. Late 60s or 70s album, a very ethereal harp and saxophone instrumental. And in the meditation, there wasn't an object in the meditation. By this stage, I mean, I'd been clocking up a lot of meditation hours. It was a summer holiday, and I just pretty much spent the whole summer holiday. My family was all out at work, and I was just meditating for basically the whole time on nothing, on emptiness. And there was a moment where there was this sort of crack that appeared, and I thought I would sort of go over it. And the closer I got to it, this was internally, the closer that I got to it, the wider it got. And I realized I was going to go in, and I was kind of wondering how far down it was, or whether I'd be able to propel myself over and get to the other side. And then one moment I was falling. I'd gone over the edge, and I was falling. And then the next moment, like in an instant, there was no one falling. And in the story of Neil, you could say that I died in that abyss. But of course, no one died there. No one's born in the first place. But no one emerged from that. No one survived it. And it was seen exactly like you say, and it was really crazy for a teenager back then, where there was none of this being spoken about, none of this kind of support around. I just could not handle what I saw, which was that not only was there no one here, but there was no one anywhere, and I felt incredibly alone, navigating, still in school, in you would call it high school in the States.
Yeah.
In that crazy position where nothing made sense. To say that I did not exist seemed like a insane thing to say. So I buried it, and I went into university. I guess I was depressed through university, and then kind of life happened, and I just, I as pretty much as soon as I'd forgotten about it, I was then looking to reclaw what I'd lost and to regain this. And I then embarked on this bonkers, lifelong seeking journey to find something again, which ultimately couldn't be found.
Wait, I think I missed part of the last part of what you said. You said there was a seeking to find something that can't be found?
I'm saying, like, I was then seeking, I was then looking to find this no self sort of based on an idea I had of it, that there would be this kind of permanent thing,
Mm-hmm.
which there isn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I had a mistaken view, which propelled me on this kind of bonkers seeking journey, when there was already no one that was seeking. It had already been recognized and seen very clearly that there was no one, and yet nevertheless there was seeking, and there was a lot of it. Went
Wow.
to India, you know, Buddhist meditation retreats and chakras, this and, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And then was that more of a gradual thing, or to see that that was a futile thing?
Yeah, I think that I think Richard Sylvester said something to me once, that this was in a break at a Tony meeting. Richard was serving the tea, which I really liked that. I really liked the fact that there was this kind of service. And Seeking Nothing hosted Richard when he published his book, Confessions of a Seeker, which is brilliantly funny. But he said something to me once that he thought that I had probably already gone, and that it was this kind of, you know, there reaches a point where you're kind of checking to see if that is the case, and it's just like a kind of residual seeking energy that, in a way, it sort of just ends up disappearing up its own backside.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can relate to a lot of what you just said. For me, it wasn't as early as me as a teenager, but it was a gradual thing after something quite sudden 2 years ago. And one of the final things that really ended the residual thing for me was at the end of one of Paul Hederman's meetings. It's on YouTube somewhere. Like, he always says goodbye to everyone at the very end, and I've been asking him questions every meeting, trying to get his language and ask him whatever, I don't know, was occurring to me. And then he said at the end, you know, oh, Art, like, you get this, right? And then I feel like strange he was asking me that. It was like, oh, you get this, right? And then I just said, I know I have glimpses. And then he just said, that's enough, you know. And then I was like, oh, maybe that is enough. Yeah, what am I doing? Like, what else am I waiting for? Like, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And really, I just ran out of questions, you know, for him and everyone else, and for myself. And there's just no questions here, you know, which is hilarious, because as soon as I ran out of questions, I became an interviewer. So, and now I'm just asking questions to a new person every week or two, or sometimes 4 people a week.
Yeah, but there is there's a sense in this interview that there aren't any questions or answers, really. There is an interest in sharing stories, and, you know, on this moment you're the interviewer, so kind of the focus is on me, but in another moment, you know, I'm going to be equally chucking questions at you, maybe Nothing Cafe will host you sometime, and you will turn the compliment to come and join us, and we'll hear your story in more detail and depth.
Yeah, sure. I mean, to me, it's like I like these poetic ways of putting it that resonate for me, like music, or like this is all just poetry or dancing colors. And this is why I think I also enjoyed people like Nancy Nethercutt and Michael Markham quite a bit, because they speak very poetically quite often about this. And if you ever try to pin them down on what they mean by anything, it's like the harder you grasp sand, it's just going to make it slide out of your hand,
Nice.
And
but they say it better.
They say it better.
Yeah, what you said with the metaphor of the sand, it is like that, but in the skillful, with Nancy's skills, it would be articulated in this exquisite, beautiful eruption of words that just mess with your whole solidity of anything, that leaves you with nothing to kind of hold on to. It's just gorgeous and free flowing, wonderful.
Absolutely, yeah. And Nancy, I think at one point she shared a song with me that she recorded like when she was like a teenager, and she was an incredible guitarist and songwriter and singer back then, and she's also made paintings, and she just has an artistic personality. So for her, the poetry is just a natural expression. For me, that's what these interviews are, and I guess that's what I was getting at, is this is like, inter means between, so between our views, ocean to ocean. But where's the separation? Like the title of it, Ocean to Ocean, is getting at the whole paradoxical nature of this. How could the ocean communicate with itself, And yet that's all that's ever happening, is the unknowable is apparently unknowing with itself. It's loving itself. And, I was listening, and I also love listening to interviews with people of all types in general. I've just been a fan of the medium for a long time, and a fan of podcasts for a long time. And like I was listening to some lately. Last week I listened to a little bit of Noam Chomsky talking about language, because he's a very famous linguistics professor, and he was talking about how like dogs have about 10 to 15 like words or concepts that they know, that they have in their mind. They can't say it, they don't communicate with anyone, but they just bark. But they know, but they have a few concepts, like maybe 10 or 15, like food or water, or he didn't say what they were. He just said they were like the things you would expect. And then he said, what's unique about humans is that our language has words that can get combined and create a hierarchy, almost like a pyramid. And he says this hierarchy can extend mathematically into infinity. There's no end to where it goes. So humans, we start with the same basic concepts that every other animal that preceded us have, of food, shelter, danger, whatever, and sex, and then now we have just concepts that are so incredibly refined, of non-duality. And what the hell does that mean, non-duality? No one can define this word, and that's the beauty of it. It's this sort, and who can define what love is, or what nothing means, or all of these like wonderful pointers that you hear of in this space. It's like the sand. The moment your mind grasps it into something, it's gone. You lost it, and you can't even have it because you are it. And etc. And I have no idea what I'm talking about. That's the truth. This is all just, as U.G. Krishnamurti said, the barking of a dog. But that's not to negate the beauty of it either, and the importance of what your work is involving now, more of helping those like you. So it was great to hear about your story a bit, because it really highlights how you do have a unique I guess, set of experience to help others, because you had this sort of experience of feeling very alone and feeling very confused after having seen there's no one and there's nothing. Then what now what? And so yeah, and there
Now
is
what,
this human
indeed.
side.
Yeah.
There's a human side to it that I think can't be denied, or it's denied at your peril, perhaps. You know, you got to feed the body, etc. But I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, now what, indeed. I mean, it's, you know, what I hear from people is there is this, you know, universal bliss that you are seeing, that nothing is. And then there's life, which is sometimes a bit kind of shit, basically, that you've got to kind of deal with this stuff that's coming up, and the when separation evaporates, it's possible to grasp the nettle of life and do life. You don't need to hold in mind this non-dual reality of what life is kind of chucking at you. You just need to do the thing that you need to do. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to worry about the fact that it's apparently happening. It's happening. It's happening now. Deal with it. And that kind of, you know, I think that gets lost, because I think people who've lost separation through these non-dual talks, they've heard all of this language, this constant diatribe of you are no one, there's nothing to do, you know, nothing's happening. And the thing is that message, you are no one, that who is it, who does the you know, the one who is adopting that, who do they think that message is for? You know, if someone is taking that message in and they're doing something with it and changing how they live because they're hearing this message, you are no one, and then they're then got this kind of laissez-faire, just gonna roll with it, just gonna be a bit non-dual and let life happen and be in the flow kind of thing, you know, as a result of hearing that message. It's like a programming. That's not what the message is. The message is not for the individual. It can't be. The message, you are no one, is not for anyone. It can't be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and at the same time, that no one is all-inclusive. So everything that's apparent is included in that. It's just not knowable. Like, another reason why I love Nancy and Michael is because they really celebrate the apparent. They celebrate the humanness. They don't shy away from it or negate it. Like, they're constantly talking about how much they love everyone they interact with, and the beauty of just the simple things of life that the body is experiencing, and even the sense of self and the beauty of that, you know, in which, you know, in their language is just a product of the brain. You could say evolution, genetics, and this is all, you know, the best guess of humans in this whole, you know, reality of how things are going. And yeah.
Honestly, I don't go around in life talking non-dual at all. Like, this is the most non-dual I've said probably in about, well, probably ever, really. I mean, it's just not in my lexicon, really, to, you know, I get it. I kind of feel once you've got it, you got it. And then, you know, like, you know, Paul said to you, I think you get it, right? And it's like, the world isn't changed because you speak in a non-dual way. The life that you're living, the stories that your life is, you know, becoming or writing, whatever, you know, whether that is a fictional self, however you want to think about it in ultimate terms, but that's what is unfolding. So I'm not, you know, I'm not going around having to think, oh, what is the non-dual way of looking at this thing that is hitting me? I've just got the thing that's hitting me. There's not like another. I think that's part of the collapse, part of the liberation, is that there isn't a need to worry about non-duality anymore. So I can meet and engage with people. I mean, I love people. That's what I suppose, you know, that's what really counts for me is people and sharing, friendship, warmth, humanity. And I don't need someone to know anything about non-duality in order for me to love them and who they are and their beautiful story. It's just wonderfully unnecessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and you hear people often talk about when this sort of change of perspective is new, there's often an excitement for people to want to share it with people that have no interest, and then that creates some friction quite usually. And yeah, I mean, and eventually that does seem to soften for most people, where everything's just fine the way it is. And this really isn't, this truly is nothing special. This is not something that I feel like everyone I know needs to know about. It's like, no, life is fine as it is. Like, who am I to impose anything, really? I mean, I make these, you know, I love having these conversations because there's a passion around talking about it and talking and sharing experiences, hearing your experience, and just seeing what bubbles up in the conversation. It's just, to me, it really is like music. It's like,
I don't mean what I'm saying to in any way to denigrate what these wonderful speakers and you who's engaging with them are doing, because there is a moment for the seeker where they are hearing something and it goes in and it does its, you know, it works its kind of magic, and a bit of the seeking story kind of collapses, and there is then the possibility of this freedom, and it is a beautiful thing. It happened to me. I was stuck in seeking, and now I'm no longer seeking, and that is, you know, there's a celebration and a love of that, and I'm still very much drawn to people who kind of resonate with that, and hence kind of being here running the Nothing Cafe. So I totally appreciate that. I think what I'm interested, I suppose, in helping people to give themselves permission for, is that when seeking ends, they really can, you know, be anything. They can be themselves. I suppose, you know, I use the personal language. I use the language of the self, and all of the things associated with that. And I don't have to qualify that in Neil's world, in Neil's reality. I don't have to go around qualifying that with the word apparently. I talk as if I was someone who is living a personal life, working at that life, using tools to improve on that. I see my life changing over, you know, it's changed massively over the last couple of years, and I'm interested and excited about how it's going to change in the next couple of years. And I don't need to qualify that and say, oh, well, there's no one living that life. I'm not having a life. There isn't me, and all that kind of thing. Do you see what I mean? It's just immediate. There's no separation in anything. And that's just Neil's character being a bit rubbish at talking about non-duality.
Yeah, and that's the freedom. It's the freedom that this doesn't have to look or sound any particular way. You know, one person might really just enjoy talking about how this is all nothing after a shift, and that's just what's happening, and that's fine. And then someone else, you know, might never talk about it or have any interest even in attending meetings like this or watching videos. They might just live their life, and you know, it's enough. Like that's the beauty, is that you get to see what this is like. This is like for you, and you know, this is, I don't know, some other point came to mind that.
Yeah, if I can jump in on that,
Sure.
because it then comes very much into beliefs, which I think you touched on, which got me thinking that, you know, in the absence of beliefs, in the absence of, you know, if you don't have the belief in self, if you don't have a strong sense of being someone, then in a way all beliefs are kind of hazy at best. You know, that I think the last belief that I had was that it was in tea. I mean, I'm drinking tea here while I'm talking to you, and in the absence of having a belief, it's then possible for other people to have very strong beliefs and to share those beliefs. And I've found recently that I'm really kind of interested in that, and I don't have it doesn't meet a resistance. I can, you know, hear when someone is telling me something that is very different from how I would have thought things to be. I'm quite happy to go along with that, and there's like an inquisitive curiosity in the story around that, and who is, you know, who is the person that has got that belief, that is sharing that, and touched by that, you know, the privilege in hearing and being allowed to encounter that world that is very different from my world.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's wow. Yeah, so yeah, something I wanted to share in that vein of thought or conversation is, so when I had this, you know, experience a couple of years ago, you know, I'd been studying Ramana Maharshi for quite a few years and practicing self-inquiry, surrender, and just reading and listening to his words, with not so much of a strong sense of seeking, really, because I knew other people who were very frustrated by that stuff. And they were like, well, what does he really mean? And that I didn't really have so much of that. For me, it was just more of a feeling of relief of the simplicity of a lot of what he said. But nonetheless, and at this point, I don't listen to him or really anyone in particular too much. It's just sort of whatever comes up, I check that out for fun. And, you know, I'm sure I would love listening to Ramana's words if I went back to it, but yeah, that's not really my point. My point is that, so when I had this experience, it mirrored his description. I mean, I would even say, it was it could have been, I don't know yes or no on this, but this is kind of getting to my point. Like, I had this experience that was very much what he described happens. And it involved a lot of different things and then no thing. But it was pretty much exactly what he described. And one specific element with energy going up from the heart through the roof of the head, back down into the heart. And he says that's where it has to go back into the heart. That's how the ego dies or whatever. He said that. So I was, and then everything was silent and bliss and this and that lasted quite a while. But there was no sense of time or thought. And it was very beautiful, very, very beautiful. And something that I knew, like, my mind was going to want more of, but I knew that was futile, and you know, and it just played itself out. And when I think about that now, like, I'm thinking, well, if I'd been listening to Tony back then,
That's amazing.
yeah. Well, thank you. Well, I can't take credit, but yeah, no.
That's awesome. I mean, that's beautiful.
It was really beautiful, and it's the kind of thing that, you know, I would want everyone to be able to experience if I knew there was a way to do that. But I'm not going to recommend everyone read Ramana and practice his thing for 5 years. I mean, because I don't know what causes what. But and at the same,
when you kind of say it because you've told that in more depth elsewhere, more kind of fully, but it's like in a slightly kind of dismissive way, because I suppose in this community, people don't value experience often, but that is your experience, and it's a beautiful experience, and it is a defining moment in the story of art that's, you know, wonderful for you to share. Well, I'm sure people hearing that will you know, recognize in that is, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that, Neil. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I don't mean to be dismissive about it. You know, I guess I have that same thing. It's not about it being like unpolitically correct to talk about too much. It's more about, I don't want to make myself seem special or enlightened or anything like this. I also don't want to make anyone think, you know, this is a practice they need to do to have, you know, because again, the thing that's clear to me, I mean, this could be untrue as well, but the thing that resonates for me is that
I'm trying, you know, was recounting my experience of flowing over this crack, and I told it as a story, right?
Yes.
But we're talking about something totally existential, that the outcome of that, right, was that forevermore what is beheld is nothing, and this abyss which I fell in and then saw that there was no one, this abyss didn't go away. It's, you know, it's encountered in everything. Of, you know, life is full and things kind of, you know, I've got a very my brain is often quite active. I do think a lot, and sometimes I get a bit anxious about things, and, you know, I'm just a normal person, right? But in those moments where things part, there's, you know, I could be looking at a tree and it is the abyss. I'm looking right into nothing, and it is just, you know, like, it is just mind blowing. It is just nothing is, you know, the extent to which nothing is happening ever, like eternally, it hits me. It's just like, you know, it's immense. It's profound. It's something that is so intense that, you know, it's probably, you know, I'm mentioning it here, probably kind of signing it off and never going to speak about it again. But it's, you know, these things are earth shattering. They're kind of psychic worlds being blown apart, or for you, a wholesome, more different experience.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing all of your experiences and story in that way too. I mean, it's just, I think back and forth, we're like this feedback loop that are just going to keep inspiring more thoughts as we say these things with each other, and the people listening and watching, I'm sure too. And it's, or many of them, and whether it's they relate to it or your own curiosity, whoever's listening. But it's I like the way Kenneth Madden say it's ordinary and extraordinary, because when you talked about the tree, because there was something that fell away from that experience I had, You know, I like this Zen way of putting things: sudden awakening followed by gradual cultivation. Because, you know, if you imagine like how complicated, you know, physical systems are, and the brain is the most complicated physical system ever science has looked at, really. And so let's say the brain has some experience that is very like reality shifting. It wouldn't just change everything forever immediately like a light switch. It's more like when you turn the switch off to stop the fan's still spinning just as fast, and maybe over time it slows. I like that analogy. You know, I heard Richard Sylvester had a more comical take on that. That it's like a mouse, like a rat on a wheel, a mouse on a wheel, and the mouse dies and falls off, but the wheel's still going. And
Brilliant.
yeah, yeah,
This is maybe random, but somewhere in that, it may be you talking about the heart space and your experience of the energy going back into the heart.
yeah, yeah.
The idea of loving myself has popped up into my head, and I think this is, you know, I think this is interesting when you say about how like the wheel's turning and there's these kinds of, you know, changes. And, you know, like for me, seeking ended probably a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, that, you know, that there's not been any questions about this, what this is, or, you know, from a seeking point of view at all for, you know, for years.
Yeah.
I made the distinction between seeking in life and the stuff of doing life and being engaged in life as something that when spiritual seeking ends, then all of that is kind of happening without a sense of separation. So for me, there is a distinction. I know for other people, they you know, they kind of sit differently. But about a year ago, I sort of encountered myself and had a conversation with myself as if for the first time. And it was like an energetic thing. It was like a beautiful thing of this self that is a story, in a very intimate way, being given some recognition and appreciation, that maybe it was some healing that was needed, that, you know, that was kind of left over from that battering that the self had taken through these years of trying to get rid of the self. And after that, when, you know, when seeking ended, maybe there was some residual issues around that. But I had this beautiful encounter with myself, which I know wouldn't make sense to a seeker. But I do know from speaking to speakers that even though it's paradoxical, it just does make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it is. It does. And this love and appreciation for myself has changed me in a new way. And this is very, very recent. And I think that there's a message there somewhere, I think, that I carry in how I am now, which is new, really. And it's nothing to do with non-duality in terms of, you know, dissolving separation, seeking and all that. But it's a bit like what you say about going back to the heart and an appreciation for the personal story and what that story is, the story of life, and how that is a beautiful story, really. And it deserves to be heard, it deserves to be shared.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And yeah, yeah, I'll just say, there are these. I was going to say that this is a little more out there, but the model of this idea of the age of Aquarius, or there's this there's various models that are all saying the same thing about the time we're living in. The idea of the death of the patriarchy. There's this other channeled entity named Ra. There's this thing called Law of One that says we're entering the fourth level of density, which is like the fourth chakra, the heart space at a planetary level, basically after thousands of years. I mean, Aleister Crowley talked about the end of an age, and so many people have talked about it, these thousands of years of a sort of masculine energy, and now things are coming to a place of more love and balance and community, and not just the old model of some lineage of men that all figured it out and you listen to them until you're the next clone of them.
I think it's lovely that there is more women coming into the to this space speaking about this. I think that there is a sense here that it is very much about a kind of merging of masculine and feminine energies within the person. It's both, and this I sometimes hear, and I kind of feel this, that movement towards emptiness, that emptiness is a more kind of masculine thing and fullness is a more kind of feminine thing, and it's both. And I think one of the things that I think is worth touching on is that the message is sometimes confused with, and it does sometimes lead to a detached position, and there can be a confusion that dissociation or being detached, like from an observational kind of point of view, is what this message of nothingness is about. And I think that the language of the radical message, which is this nothing being everything message, it's kind of why I use those words, and that's why I love that wording, because it doesn't really allow for that. And the other thing I want to mention, if I may, while I'm on this kind of train of thought, is about mental health and about the difficulties people face, and that speakers are not, they have a particular job to do, and that people that are kind of suffering with mental health issues, I'd encourage them to find out about how to, resources, whether it's through friends and professional support in their areas that can help them on that particular issue, whatever it is. I think it's, I know it's sort of going off topic a bit, but I'm just saying this because I know that, there are people kind of struggling. We've had the pandemic. It's been an isolating world. I think Nothing Cafe tackles isolation in a really cool way. We're doing something really positive. But I do feel for people that are struggling. And, I personally am not, my work isn't in the form of a therapist, and nor is a speaker. And I think that my message to speakers as well is to, to speak responsibly and to kind of, be mindful of what you're saying and what is being communicated.
No, and absolutely. And I mean, I feel like the way I'm talking is kind of might seem all over the place to some people, and I also want to make it clear that like one of the reasons why I really resonated with Jim Newman so much as a speaker was because when topics of mental health do come up in his meetings, I have heard him say, well, you know, if those problems arise, then maybe seeing a therapist arises, you know, whatever is needed arises. It's not negating what's apparently arising. It's so yeah, and what you just said was perfectly said. And yeah, I feel like yeah, we could wrap up soon. I want to get to your music question before we do. I also just wanted to highlight in response, you know, to everything you said, and to finish my last thought, just how the Nothing Cafe to me is this perfect example of, you know, what I would consider an Age of Aquarius, fourth level density kind of thing. You know, it's just a balance. Well, no, it's a decentralized power structure, just like cryptocurrency is, and really just like YouTube and Zoom is. Because if you think about 50, 60 years ago, to get any video audio message out there, you would have to, you know, make it be on broadcast on a centralized power structure of TV stations, or go through a movie, you know, chain of distribution. And there was a very centralized, you know, like gatekeeper. And now anyone could make a YouTube channel and share whatever their point of view is. And that's the beauty of this. And if you don't like it, you can go elsewhere, and, you know, and it's just, and so what I like about Nothing Cafe is it's decentralized. There's no central structure or message. And if you don't like what one person says, you're going to be in a different room, in a different group in half an hour. And it's, I like that, because I feel like humans are never going to all agree on one thing. You know, that's something I'm pretty sure of. So the more expression of variety we have, and the more freedom we have to, you know, find a space that resonates with us personally, which could change year to year, you know, is, to me, that's a good thing. You know, for lack of a better word, I'll just call it good. I don't know. It feels good to me, because like I grew up, I went to a Christian high school. It felt incredibly, oh my God, I don't even know the word, just very oppressive in a way, like on every level, because there was no real freedom of thought, of clothing, of expression. It was just, yeah, and it felt actually abusive, honestly, to do that to young children, to not allow them to, you know, just follow their own passion. And that's a whole nother story. It's the school system and how, yeah. But anyway, before we end, I'd love to, and feel free to respond to any of that if you want, but before we end, I'd love to bring it back to the music topic you wanted to ask me about or bring up.
Yeah. Yeah, just love to hear more about your kind of musical world. Oh
yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, I just went on a monologue, so now I'm going to do another one.
Well, I want to say that I was reflecting, because you were sort of saying that, you know, you said before you started saying that, you were saying, well, I'm sorry if I've been kind of a bit erratic, and I kind of feel that something in what you said prompted me to say something which may have felt and may feel to people listening that it you know, it kind of went in another way. And I think it's just that my brain doesn't work kind of linearly, and so right. I'm sorry if it's not kind of smooth and a nice kind of smooth conversation. I'm not I didn't acknowledge and respond properly to the point that you were making, so it's just that sometimes, you know, with conversations, things are, you know, sort of a bit chaotic. So
yeah. No, absolutely. And
I just love riffing with you. I love, you know, I'm looking forward to hearing more of your perspective about this fourth wave, did you call it?
Yeah, some people are calling it the fourth level of density.
Fourth level.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's some juice in that, so I look forward to you know, picking up on that and finding out more.
Yeah, every now and then, yeah, no, I'm pretty high in open-mindedness. Let's say that. So yeah, and I know that
Me
mm,
too.
yeah, yeah, and okay, well, so let's not, yeah, and I'm not going to say this is a strong belief I'm holding, but I'll say it's an interesting metaphor at the very least, for something that I'm is apparent to me. That's all I could say. But um yeah, just to make it clear, I hold everything I say pretty loosely, and I think, and I really adore the radical message of this is truly unknowable, you know. Um, but okay, on the topic of music, yeah, it's a perfect way to kind of wrap this up in a way, because you're talking about riffing with me, and it's kind of where I was headed anyways. That these types of conversations, as well as everything in life, really, it all becomes music. I mean, music was a lens that I've appreciated in life. I was about to say, yeah, I mean, music was the central focus of my life for most of my life. From the time I was like 2 or 3 years old, I was focused on music, and I've made just dozens of albums, played thousands of shows, and been in dozens of bands, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, and I've just listened to so much music and been passionate about all of it. Um, yeah, and I never, yeah. Well, anyway, the yeah. So it's a big topic. It's a huge topic.
What's your weapon
Oh well,
choice?
even that is multiple. Like, I don't really have a single anything when it comes to music. Like, I do sing, I play guitar, I play keyboard, I do things on the computer. I played drums previously. Pretty much, I used to play shows with clarinet, trumpet. Yeah, and I'm not trying to brag, because I would have been a much better instrumentalist if I focused on just one instrument. But I was always drawn to variety and surprise, which I think people who've been seeing me do these interviews might notice that this is kind of how I like to interview too, with things.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So perfect example.
Given the breadth of what we've covered in a comparatively short period of time, it kind of fits.
There you exactly. So I love breadth. To me, breadth does have depth in it, because you just start seeing how it's all the same. It's like, and yet different. It's both. It's like to me, certain speakers, it's like that's like heavy metal music, and another one is like classical, and another one is like jazz or rock, or it's and it's whatever floats your boat. It's whatever you resonate with. I happen to resonate with a wide variety of things, not everything, and certainly not everything equally on any given day of the week. So I do have my apparent preferences, and they change over time. And so, yeah, and for me, it is about the moment of discovery. At a certain point, I realized that's what I loved most about music. And that's why I spent a lot of time playing improvisational music, is because I really love that moment of like, wow, this is it right now. Not the moment of like, now I'm going to go back and try to perfect that for like 1,000 takes. Like, I like the imperfection. I like the spontaneity of just the moment. To me, that's my preference, and just because it's never been seen before, and it's authentic. There's no pre-calculation in it consciously, so nothing contrived. Like, we certainly went places in this conversation that neither of us could have predicted, and that's what I love about it. And I hope that's what other people might enjoy as well.
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful that I met you. I'm grateful for the opportunity that you extended to me to share some thoughts in this kind of world. Everyone's got their own kind of views, and I certainly, have no interest in imposing mine on anyone. So it's therefore, it's a rare moment that I get to kind of speak to this, this kind of topic. And if anyone wants to come along to the Nothing Cafe, you're very welcome. It starts by finding us on Facebook, and we're a group on Facebook, and there's some rules to sign up to, which are there to kind of keep our members safe and help everyone to feel kind of secure and to look after the community. And they're basically about just respect and being open and sharing and empathic. You're really welcome to come and find us. We're a growing community, and we are having some beautiful conversations, and it'd be great to have you being a part of them. So just throwing that out there.
Wonderful. And if you'd also like to let people know if they're interested in your one-on-one coaching service, where could they find you for that?
Well, again, at the moment, it's kind of being pushed out there and on Seeking Nothing, which is at the moment a Facebook page. So we will have web stuff coming up. But at the moment, find us through Facebook. Best place is on the Seeking Nothing Facebook page.
Okay, well, awesome. And I really enjoyed this, Neil. I want to reciprocate and say I'm also very honored and happy that I met you. And the Nothing Cafe, I'm going to keep coming to it because, as long as I can, because I really I love it. I love meeting new people who are interested in this kind of topic, and so for me, it's like I love it. Yeah.
And who knows what will happen with this cross-fertilization of ideas, where it will go, and
it's just great. It's great to see where things go. Well, good note to end on. Thank you again, Neil.
Thank you.